Friday night, after the buzzer at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Tiffany Hayes hadn't even sat down at the podium yet, and she was already talking about Caitlin Clark. "They're never going to start calling the fouls on her," Hayes reportedly said. "If they did, she would never get to play the game." Clark had just dropped 22 points and 9 assists on the Valkyries in her first game back from a back injury. Hayes had scored 19 off the bench. The Fever won, 90-82, and Hayes wanted everyone to know the wrong person was getting the calls. The Valkyries flew home Friday night. They get Clark back on Thursday at Chase Center, 10 o'clock Eastern, San Francisco, Hayes' home crowd. And buried in Tip Hayes' post-game quote is one specific phrase. Read it twice. She would never get to play the game. Hayes wasn't just complaining about referees. She was telling the league something else, and she said it before the room asked her anything. Reporters were still settling in. Hayes wasn't answering a question about officiating. She was volunteering it. 3 nights before Caitlin Clark walks into her arena, Tip Hayes isn't some bench player working her way up. She's the reigning WNBA Sixth Player of the Year, the 2024 award, and she won it coming out of retirement at 34 years old. The Las Vegas Aces signed her in May of 2024 after she'd announced she was done. By October, she had the trophy. Before that, she'd made All-WNBA First Team in 2018, alongside All-Defensive Second Team that same season, 6th place in MVP voting that year, and a career-best scoring season for the Atlanta Dream, where she averaged 16.2 points a game. She's a one-time All-Star, 2017. She's played in Atlanta, Connecticut, Las Vegas, and now Golden State. 13 seasons in the WNBA, 378 career regular season games. Before any of that, she won 2 national championships at the University of Connecticut, back-to-back in 2009 and 2010, playing for Geno Auriemma. So Tip Hayes knows what referee calls look like on a championship floor. She knows what Caitlin Clark gets, and she knows what she gets. When she said the league won't ever call fouls on Clark, that wasn't a fan venting on Twitter. That was 13 years of professional basketball, read through the eyes of a player who's been beside the calls, not the one getting them. Here's what Friday actually was. Caitlin Clark hadn't played Wednesday. Indiana scratched her 90 minutes before tip-off against the Portland Fire, a back issue the team hadn't put on the injury report. Tuesday she didn't practice. Wednesday she didn't play. Friday she walked out at Gainbridge and dropped 22 points and 9 assists in her first game back. The Valkyries came in with a plan. They'd told reporters they were going to bother Clark. Physical, pressure, hands all over her, frustrate her out of rhythm. Tip Hayes started the game clapping in Clark's face after a first-quarter bucket. Officials called 5 fouls on Clark, including a flagrant. Hayes had 19 points off the bench, team high for Golden State. The Fever's Myisha Hines-Allen got pulled in the first quarter, visibly struggling to move. Aaliyah Boston posted 20 points and 16 rebounds. Kelsey Mitchell added 19. The lead went back and forth. Indiana down by 11 at one point in the second quarter, missing 6 of their first 7 shots. Then, in the third quarter, Caitlin Clark made it personal. She pulled up from the logo, the half-court line at Gainbridge, and buried it over Tip Hayes. And then she turned around to say something. In the fourth quarter, Clark planted herself in front of Hayes. Hayes went down. Officials called it a flagrant on Clark. $500 fine. Clark didn't care. The Fever won by 8. What Caitlin Clark said is on broadcast tape. You like that. 3 words. Hayes shot back. Words that won't pass through a clean narration without half the syllables bleeped out. Clark answered her. Bring it on. Let's go. Step up. 5 seconds of mid-game eye contact after a logo 3. The cameras caught it. The microphones caught it. Twitter caught it. And when the verbal got close to physical, the Fever's Myisha Hines-Allen stepped in. Hines-Allen, the same player who'd been pulled in the first quarter unable to move, came back into the game later and planted herself between Caitlin Clark and Tip Hayes. She put her hand on Hayes' chest. Hayes backed off. The Fever bench had Clark's back. The Valkyries bench was watching. By Saturday morning, former WNBA All-Star Stacey Dales was on broadcast calling Clark's performance unreal. What a performer. This wasn't last year's rookie Caitlin Clark playing nice with a veteran. This was someone who'd been scratched from a game, watched her arena go half empty without her, sat through 3 days of national speculation about whether her back was real, and decided to answer all of it on the floor, in Tip Hayes' face, with a logo 3. Indianapolis has watched this script before. May 7, 1995. Madison Square Garden, Reggie Miller's Pacers down by 6 points to Patrick Ewing's Knicks with 18.7 seconds left on the clock. The man heckling Miller from the front row all game was Spike Lee, Knicks superfan, sitting where the broadcast cameras could see him every possession. Miller hit a three, stole the inbound, hit another three, got fouled, made both free throws, 8 points in 9 seconds. The Pacers won by 2. Reggie Miller walked off Madison Square Garden's floor with his finger across his throat, looking right at Spike Lee. That's the Indiana playbook on the road. You go into the other team's building, you take the heckling, you take the calls going the home team's way, and you make sure everyone in the room remembers your name by the time the buzzer goes off. Thursday night at Chase Center, Tip Hayes is the heckler in the front row. Caitlin Clark is the visiting Pacer, and there's a microphone hot enough to catch every word. Thursday is 10 o'clock Eastern, Chase Center, downtown San Francisco. Valkyries' home crowd, their bench, their Tip Hayes, the woman who came off her own bench Friday, scored 19, and then sat down at the postgame podium and told the room that Caitlin Clark is the one the referees protect. 5 days after Indianapolis hosted 350,000 people for the Indy 500. 5 days after Clark waved the green flag as Grand Marshal of the 110th running. 5 days after she dropped 22 on the team, Tip Hayes is on. Stephanie White's defense made the second half adjustment Friday. Pick up points higher, traps in the corners. The Valkyries committed 22 turnovers in that second half. White's defense isn't the question Thursday night. The question is what Tip Hayes does with what Tip Hayes said. Because Hayes' home crowd already heard her say it. So did the league office. So did Caitlin Clark. Tip Hayes' quote follows her into Thursday's pregame. Reporters will ask her about it. The league office in New York is going to see the same broadcast clip everyone else saw. Clark's flagrant, the technical foul she didn't even know she'd been given until after the game, the half-dozen scratches on her arms by the fourth quarter. They're also going to see the Friday box score. Caitlin Clark, the player Tip Hayes says the league protects, finished with 5 personal fouls, a flagrant and a technical. Tip Hayes finished with 3 personal fouls. The player Hayes says will never get called for anything took more whistles in one game than Hayes did. If the officials call Thursday tight, Tip Hayes was wrong on the record. If they call it loose, Hayes gets the foul calls she said she'd never get. There's no version of Thursday night that doesn't test her quote against the tape. Tip Hayes started Friday's game clapping in Caitlin Clark's face. By the third quarter, Clark was hitting logo threes in her face. By the postgame podium, Hayes was the one running her mouth about referees. The aggressor became the victim. And Thursday night, the aggressor goes back on the road, on her own floor, to face the player who answered her on the floor first. Tip Hayes is a 6th Player of the Year. She's been in this league since Caitlin Clark was in middle school. She knows what the postgame mic catches, she knows what reporters do with it. So when she sat down on Friday and said what she said about Clark, 3 nights before they'd see each other again on Hayes' home floor, what was Tip Hayes actually trying to tell her own crowd to do? Tip-off is 10 o'clock Eastern, Chase Center, Thursday night. The receipts go public when Caitlin Clark walks onto that floor.